welcome Gonzalo and Rusudan to Trust Issues, and thank you so much for being part of it. And just to set the conversation, let's we have been discussing this topic for a long time now, but when you think of trust issues, what comes to your head?
At the moment, I'm in the state, but it's all about politics, the government, the first. I don't know why. The government comes to my head.
I think in intimacy, because a lot of my work, it's about safetyness in your own spaces, in your own bed, in your own home. So if it's not a safe space, then you have these trust issues, right, with your own body and your own space.
But it's also kind of this idea that all three of us, right? I mean, all three of you artists, and we come from different backgrounds and different countries, and we all have this different concepts of trust, right? So how does it relate to the works that we see on view here? How do they specifically relate to Mexico, to Georgia?
The works that I'm presenting in the show, they're inspired by movies, Mexican movies from the 70s. And this decade, it's a very special decade for Mexico because it has a lot of political and social issues in the cinema of that time because of the, we have this massacre of the students in the year of 1968. So a lot of my influential came from movies, but also from these political and social issues, which is, I mean, it's still go on in the Mexican culture and our own problems as a country. Mm-hmm.
As a country, and it's mirroring in a way, maybe not the scale, but what's happening in Georgia right now with the protests, with the anti-governmental movement that we see been happening for 90 days now, right, Rusudan? So, and I know that you've been going to protests that have been taking place in Georgia last spring and now and then the fall and then in this winter. So do you feel that in some ways some of the works that we see here are some of the political statements that you're making as an artist?
Well, in general, I think it took maybe around longer than 3 months, but so we are starting protesting from the spring 23.
Yeah.
So, and and the works I am showing here, these the 4 pieces of my paintings I created them during this time, I think so, because I started from the big one. It was last year from 23, from beginning of 24. The end of 23, and the painting which is behind of me, it's the last one, which is, I think, to me, it's the most significant one. And maybe it's the people can't understand, of course, but I can see how I was changing during these times through my paintings, because to me, the most important thing is always be honest and always translating everything, all truth about all events, what happens around of me, because I'm the part of the society, the Georgian society. I would love to, I would love to be much calmer and don't accept everything like I do, actually. And in these works, I just showing how I'm living in this mess. But I'm trying to watch from another part, like on the backstage, and that's why the part of these red paintings, they are remembering the Shakespeare, and so
especially
it's very
first works,
exactly.
Right?
They are very theatrical, because everything happens without us, and we are pretending to change anything.
That we can control something.
And it's a very it's a very big lie, and we are seeking for truth. So, and how I am explaining it through my paintings, I never think about when I'm starting. I just know this is the message, what I should make the visual. I'm making this visual message, and it's coming itself. All symbols are coming itself. For example, like a volcano behind of me. This is the little part, and the most important part on this painting, because the around is the world is crazy, and I'm trying to find the quiet place in my studio.
And the sheltering, right?
And the sheltering, and the title of it.
Yeah.
And this is my shelter for a few hours when I'm working, and I'm again continuing, I am again going to this hell, and it's never ending. I don't know how long we can take it. So, but we are struggling. And if before I was thinking how happy I was 2 years ago, because everything was predictable, and now it's changing every second.
It's changing, and it's also, you know, it's changing in Georgia, it's changing in US, it's changing in EU, and we have all these uncertainties, and kind of navigating these uncertainties and kind of really staying sane, and, you know, at the same time kind of internalizing it and, you know, taking them in, while continuing being who we are as artists, or as writers, as cultural workers. And this is kind of, it's a challenge, right, that we're all facing in different ways. So
you know, I just want to say that I do not want to say that loudly, but it seems like I'm in between resistance and acceptation.
Of what is happening.
Yes, and this is killing. Really killing, but you know the human being. They're trying to find their place. So that's
right. So
in the end,
because we cannot. It's psychologically it's impossible to be in this unstable kind of uncertainty.
Absolutely,
it's very damaging.
absolutely.
And it's damaging to nervous system. It's damaging to everything. So
we're
trying.
Seeking the shelter.
Yeah. It's interesting. Gonzalo, how would you comment? Your works are also, they also work a lot with this idea of dissonance and disharmony, and kind of finding you're disrupting the balance, and then you're trying to reconfigure this balance, right? In all of the works that we see here. So can you tell me a little bit about this kind of this dissonance and harmony, and how these two processes work for you?
In my painting, I'm always trying to make this mixed sensation between this image that it's like a very beautiful image because of the colors, and also because the composition, and because they are intimate scene with a lot of bodies trying to, I don't know, to get cozy, I think, in the spaces. But in the same time, there's something wrong in the scene, which is disturbance. And I love that mixed sensation, because you can relate to violence in new ways, right? With these
Because the nature
images.
of violence also changed, right? This nature of violence that we have sometimes, it just comes from all this fakeness and fake news and all this populism, right, that is surrounding us. So the violence is kind of, it changed, it became softer on the surface, but it didn't change the essence. Yeah, exactly. Toxic. It became, killing us softly, sure, yes.
And actually, I'm with Rusudan. Here in Mexico, for example, we have that same sensation with violence and government, because even if nowadays, for example, we have like democracy, right? But in the same time, we have like this huge amount of violence in all the country. Right. So we always, as an artist, I'm always thinking about how to speak in my work of that sense and that sensation and that mixed sensation, actually, but not in a literal way, you know, in new ways. And that's why I think that this, actually your show is so contemporary, because artists, we are thinking about these things. We are not a part of these social and political issues. And it's actually so damaging that now you have it in your own home, in your own spaces,
it's poignant,
right?
It's very poignant, and
Yes, it came into it. It's like a nightmare. It came into it.
Yeah.
That, like, I love the very small novel of story of Julio Cortázar, when they are filling the room. They are filling the room. So and I'm always thinking about that. So because we are exactly facing this moment, I'm exactly living in some books.
Right.
I was reading from my childhood, but I didn't realize what it means like that, because I realized it was horrible, of course, but I couldn't. When you try it on your skin, it's different.
Yes, it's different, and then what is dangerous about it is also in this Mark Fisher's book that I keep referencing for this book, one sentence that, for the show, one sentence that really stood out to me is that how we were pushed towards the ironic distance against to fight the not to be seduced by fanaticism, and I really like this kind of formulation.
Exactly.
Because it's this ironic distance. We all have it. We all have it through our Instagrams, through all our kind of cynicism. It even turns to cynicism, and in that you lose your humanity in a little bit because we're so much used to all of these mechanisms. But then this postmodern distance, it also makes us go further from each other, you know, and then trust becomes very difficult with that. So in a way, it's kind of the circular idea, yeah. But just to go back, since you were saying that, and it's interesting, and I do believe strongly that artists have very strong role to play in difficult times like this. I mean, the painters as well as writers, because you're closest to instincts and you're closest, you just express yourselves very directly to us, and we all benefit from this. So from this, so how then, what is the role of artists in this changing time? I know it's a big question to ask, but I mean, we all think through this, because day to day we decide, are we doing this? Why are we doing this? We're asking ourselves this question. So what do you think? As a contemporary artist living in Mexico City, showing in Berlin, showing in New York, and you know, and Rusudan showing in South Korea, in Germany, in, you know, all these countries. So what are the statements that you are making as artists, and what's the role? Is it different from the statement, kind of?
I think for me it's to bring new balance to the ecosystem and into the thinking of our times, right? Because if you think that it's like a lost case, you know, to not to put your ideas in your work as a social being, not only as a human and personal, but also a social and political being, I think that you break some balance of that, you know, like to
It's
not
vertical of power in a way.
yes,
Yeah.
to question the system and to question the reality that you're living as an artist and as a person. So I think that, and also art, it's harmless, right?
Right.
So you have like this big field to put all your ideas and all your concerns as a human, and it's only painting.
Right. Yeah.
Yes, so I think that that's wonderful, actually, and people can relate it to us as such as you know, with our own ideas, not only with the work, and especially with painting, right? Because you only see the image, but actually there are a lot of ideas around the paintings before you painted it.
Right. Of
So
course.
yeah.
And one related question I want you to answer, and then I would love to hear from Rusudan, since it comes through the previous one. I mean, when you do this, do you consider yourself as a Mexican artist painting, or just you would like to be considered more as a contemporary artist? I know Rusudan's answer to that question. So
I think that you cannot be a contemporary artist, a global contemporary artist, if you're not thinking about your own heritage and your own role for me, as a Mexican painter and artist. Right. Because it's so in the bone of my work, you know. Actually, that's why I choose cinema from the 70s, because it's so social and political.
Like Ripstein's excellent movie that you recommended.
Yes,
excellent film. Yeah.
That's my favorite director, actually, Arturo Ripstein. And a lot of the movies are very political and social, but you only see a house full of people having these huge problems about identity and sexuality. So yeah, I
But
think
also manufacturing red poison. That detail is really
Yes.
kind of very eerie, and at the same time as a signifier for the film.
yes.
Yeah.
So you cannot escape. And actually, I think that that's the thing that you, as a contemporary artist, you have to stand up, you know?
Right. Yeah, I do agree with you. But yeah, Rusudan, so where do you see your kind of position as an artist today?
Today is
And,
it's not
if-
like yesterday.
Yeah, because the world changed, you know. Even
Exactly.
since the last time you had this exhibition in Berlin, when was it?
Yeah.
It's 2 years ago now, right?
2022, 23 years
3 years ago.
so far.
It's a very different.
It's all very
Life.
different. I was very
Different world.
different. I was very happy that time. Now I am in the middle. I can't say that I have answers. I have more questions than answers.
That's a good.
At the
that's
moment, yes, I have this answer to me, to my what I am doing exactly right now. I just want to say, like Gonzalo said, about the belonging to Mexican culture or belonging to universal. Before, if you remember, Nina, I always said that I want to be a universal artist. I want to be
Yeah,
global. I do
remember
not
that,
want to be
yeah.
Georgian, like the people see Georgian artists like Pirosmani, even I love him, but you know, that like the postcard artist. To me, it was always like the Pirosmanish, it was like a postcard Georgian artist, like the Soviet Union seen us.
But this is very interesting with Pirosmani, how in the beginning he was not accepted.
Absolutely.
And then how the Soviet culture
Yes.
made him the kind of
In the end,
iconic.
after
Yeah,
is that.
it's interesting if Frida had to go through the same thing. I've never noted, but probably it's similar. Yeah.
It's similar
yeah.
because the human beings are similar everywhere,
Yeah,
even
human
there.
nature doesn't change all
Exactly,
that much, unfortunately.
exactly. Even they talk different languages. They
Right.
are same.
Yeah.
So and at the moment, so everything was shifted at the moment. In my head, it's everything is shifting. Everything is in the mess. There is only one thing that's very important and necessary to me is working, is painting. And in this painting, it's floating. And I let it go out, and then I'm starting to read my painting. When before I could pretend to control my painting before. But after, right now, I just reading it after all. And it's very interesting to me because
Right.
I see it shows where I am right now through my paintings, because I cannot say where I'm right now. I just can say I'm sitting on the chair in the KORNFELD Gallery physically, but where I'm mentally, I don't have the place yet, but I hope that I will find the right place. So, and this belonging, which was not very necessary to me, suddenly it became very important.
Right, because there are so
Yes.
many.
And
because
it
of
became my
existential
mission.
Threat to the country.
Exactly,
You know?
and this
it's like
existence became like my mission. Nobody gives me the mission, but I took it. So that's it.
Right.
But of course, I want to transform it into universal. I want to transform it, and I don't know. I hope to carry this mission. And it's so and. Everything what I was doing before, by all the researching in transhumanism, in mythologies, and everything is losing its sense. Everything losing its sense. So, and if before we were thinking about finding the eternal life, the humans, that's it, the question of art. The art is eternal. Only art is eternal. So that's it. So I hope that will help me survive in this
It will.
tornado.
I'm sure it will. And it's interesting, and I really wish that Saila was here to talk about her works, although she will be talking separately. But the openness, that's the only way for us to survive, is that, to be open to experiences. And we can see that in her sculptures and the works too, that it's the multitude of perspectives, it's non-binary kind of nature of life, and it's you cannot just be dependent on the vertical of power and the vertical of reality, because capitalism is created in that way, and we should go beyond it in a way.
Because the reality has a lot of shapes. It's not like we see it.
And shades and
all of this, it's huge. We can see only from our perspective, and this perspective, somehow it's right. but in other people, they have their perspective. So it means about the conclusion of this.
Right. Then it becomes so clear-cut and
Yes.
easily labeled and put into boxes for easier consumption. And this is really kind of the mark of this time. But just to go back to your works, tell me a little about your artistic processes. What, for example, let's take the work behind you as an example. How did you start working on this? Where did it come from? And the title also, the bouquet, the fire, the bouquet.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm not only inspired by movies, but also by literature and books. So I read this book, Mexican book of the 40s. It calls like Al filo del agua, like it's like in the edge of the river, from Agustín Yáñez, and it's a novel from the beginning of 20th century and how a little town of Guadalajara in Mexico changes before the revolution and after the Mexican Revolution. But it's very interesting, the novel, because Agustín told us that we have this celebration, which is incendios, like fireworks.
Right.
And it was in the meantime of Semana Santa that people in their own homes get full of candles and flowers, their own spaces, their own bedrooms. And people can see it from the streets, and they thought that the houses were were in fire. So that's why it calls fireworks, incendios. And I'm always thought about these works as an image that is going to burn. So that's why it's always in the process. It's not like a finished painting in a sense, because I'm always thinking in how this image can relate it to pastime and also to degradation. So it's a painting inspired by the bouquets of European traditional 20th, 60th, and 27th century, but in a new way, and always having this conversation between the nature and your own body. That's why the bouquet, it's like infested with these lumps and these organs, because a lot of our humanity is trying to have this wrestle with the nature, right? With our own nature. So that's why I'm always thinking new ways to appeal to that experience. I'm always thinking that painting is erotical because you paint with your own body. And the relationship with the reality, it's erotical in that way. Right. Not sexually.
Yeah, but it has intimate, yeah.
Yes.
It's not like you are, it's like you're swimming naked, for example, in the river. So that's the relationship with the nature. That's the open. This is like a celebration of danger. It's so interesting, that fire is always like it's catching. It's fascinating and danger at the same time. Right. But you can't stop watching it. That's very great.
Because it can burn you as well,
yes.
But at the same time, that's what is attractive to it. And
also, a lot of the apartments when I was a child have those bouquets in the walls.
Yeah, exactly. I was remembering when I read the essay that you sent me, right, about the beginnings of your work, how it also tied to your different dwellings in Mexico City, right, and your walks in the markets, and how some of your still lives are inspired by it. Can you tell us a little bit about this too?
Yes,
since we are discussing this theme.
When I was a child, I live in Mexico City, and a lot of the apartments have these wallpapers, and you can see the history of the place and the families that went through to the apartment through that wallpapers. So I started to make also my own wallpapers with my own ornaments. And when I was a child, my grandmother wanted to be a painter, but she couldn't because she was like forced to get married and have childs and stuff. So she always thought about how to release that trauma. And she started to make these three-dimensional bouquets with only lithographies. But as a child, I always remember that pieces as a painting, right? Yeah. That's what I always think about painting, and I always think about that three-dimensional lithographies. So it's a very personal motive too for my own heritage and my own family. And also I became a painter because of her. So yeah, it's always
the strong presence.
This is amazing.
Thank you.
This is amazing. I always think, for example, my daughters, they have mother painter, right, or artist. So when I was a kid, so my brother could draw very well, but I didn't have this chance of growing up in the family next to art.
Don't forget that the time when we were growing up in Georgia, right, in 1990s, enveloped in civil war and all of this, lack of electricity, lack of stability.
Yeah.
So art was like, it was a different kind of universe. You could just see through books, black and white.
Black and white. This is crazy. This is the most
but that's the art we saw, but we still fell
trauma.
With it, so.
This is the artist trauma in my life. Black and white Rembrandt painting.
But you look at it that way. You start looking at it that way, and it gives you different kind of understanding.
Absolutely.
But then you see it in color.
Yes.
It's completely like looking at Rembrandt in color.
Absolutely.
Or,
this is amazing. I remember myself when I was 33 years old when I first time saw Van Gogh. Mm-hmm. It was in Chicago, Art Institute of Chicago. And I was on the verge. I could cry because before I saw him, of course, on the illustrations. Nobody who lives in Europe, in the country, they have the museum, so they have opportunity to see that. I didn't have that, so can you imagine? I learned art by heart before. It's very different. So I just could imagine how beautiful it could be, but I couldn't imagine how beautiful it was in real. Yeah. So, and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, and I just want to ask Gonzalo also, in terms of, since it came up, this conversation also, what was your first experience with art? And then we go back to sheltering. Yes. No, just because it just kind of, because then you forget.
In that sense, actually, I was thinking how we are that generation that see huge changes in art.
And it's interesting that we're from the same generation,
yes,
right?
And for me, it was the same. I only see art through books.
Right.
And almost all of them, they were black and white, or maybe in color, but like very small images of paintings. And we saw that changes, right? Now you can see
digital. I wish we didn't see this change.
But now, actually, we consume art differently, because it's not important now the finished product. It's also important the process. For example, for us as an artist with social media, a lot of people get engaged with our own works by the process, not only by the finished image, which is, I think, it's very interesting for us as an artist to see all the changes, because we see art different. I mean, first with the internet, and after that now, with the process. And actually, I'm always thinking about process in my painting, how people can relate with my pieces, more about the process and not with the finished image. Mm-hmm.
What do you think, Rusudan, in terms of how would you respond to Gonzalo?
It's absolutely true, because to me the process is the most important part. Result, of course, is important, but the process is, because I always can compare. When I was studying that time in Academy of Art, I have a teacher, the tutor, who always compare the painting with food. And I didn't understand what he's saying. It would sound very strange. How to compare with some dish, how the painting, it's like a dish. And when I became an artist, I became a painter. I sang specifically painting, because painting is another story. This is not sculpturing, this is not drawing. Painting is I think this is the most intimate part of art. I don't know, because you are in connection, or you are with this color, and you are in connection with the lines, with shapes. And it has this mystical part behind the background. And then, when I became, right now, to 45, and I definitely can say the process of painting is like your physical requirement, so requirement that you needed it. Obsessively, yes, obsession is one way, but what you need to drink water, you need to food something to survive.
Like your need.
Yes, the need.
Right, the need to.
So I cannot separate this process from my body. This is the process of my body. The painting is the process of my body. So it's in my head, it's in my body, everywhere. I fulfilled with the painting process. Of course, in the end, when I see it, I see the result. Of course, this is amazing if I like it, but it's not such important to me like before I was doing it. So I'm finishing painting and I'm continuing another one. So
Right.
I'm switching to another one because I have to continue living.
Yeah, you live
Yes.
through them.
So that's
Definitely.
that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. So
Yes,
that's,
Gonzalo is the
yes. So you agree with
the
me.
same.
This is the
And I
same.
believe Saile is also similar.
And that's
yeah.
thing what one of the artists, the Spanish artist, one of my friends, he told me once, we've been in the residency in Spain, and he told me, I understood the difference between you and me. I'm suffering when I'm painting because I'm suffering for the result, and you are enjoying process because for you the result is not necessary.
I believe that this is also kind of a part of being honest artist, right?
Absolutely.
And kind of honest to
I don't
to one's
work.
art.
Yes,
because we all see this other part of the art system, right? That produces. It's all about production, and it's all about products. It's all about the right things. But what you're describing, both of you, and I do believe strongly that Saile is on the similar kind of has the same belief that it's for the specific mission that you have, that you're working towards,
Exactly.
and not towards some
Even
correct boxes.
exactly.
And this is why it's inspiring to be
Yeah.
curator for this show for me.
Even if nobody gives me this mission, I'm carrying it.
You're carrying it.
This is very fun.
Yeah.
So it's very well. Who gives me that? Why I am carrying, like a Jeanne d'Arc? So why I'm carrying?
That's good. You're carrying the mission of being contemporary artist from Georgia, very well exhibited and known in the West. That's your mission.
Yes, that's my
It's a
mission.
big mission to carry.
Because I heard from many people, for example, from the one of the gallery in London. So they went through after me. Maybe they went through this Georgian history on where is Georgia.
Yeah.
When they
This is
first
the-
seen my art or something. It's very important, actually. It seems like nothing, but it seems very important to my country because my country is very small. And there is the difference between the big countries' people and small countries' people.